Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my March 2023 page 112 tag. The page 112 tag was brought to BookTube by Sean the Bookmaniac. He based it off of a French literary prize wherein they comprised the long list of said prize solely by reading page 112 of the books in contention. And these books were all novels, I believe. So page 112 is somewhere in the middle of most of those books. It's supposed to be after all of the polished first pages meant to impress editors, where you get to the real gritty writing. And without the context of the rest of the story, you can then only judge the book based on the quality of the writing on that one page. I have been using this tag for the past couple of years to slowly whittle away my physical TBR shelf so that I can quickly build them back up again. I take 3 prompts out of this handy dandy Books and Cats mug. These prompts, well, they're prompts as in titles of my physical books written on them, and I pick out 3 at random, and then I read and discuss each of the page 112s here with you, and then choose one of the books to join this month's TBR. Or at least that's how I play most months out of the year. Every 4th month I do something a little different. I go ahead and I take the runners-up of the last 3 months and pit those 3 books against each other and choose from them to spice things up a bit, and also to give myself a couple of months out of the year where I don't have to do as much post-production, because those clips are already done for the most part. So anywho, there we have it, and without any further ado, let's go back in time. I worry at the ring on my finger, twisting over the middle to expose the Valentine knot. It may not come to battle before the winter, my father is saying, but we must be prepared. The Queen has superior manpower and artillery. That's why Jahan came to Erin, Finn says, still with that edge to his voice, to bring us the Emperor's support. We can't go to war without the black ships from Palladis. We have to wait. Father spreads his hands. Lois Aelvrai won't wait. Jahan had better send money for the ships today. The muscle jumps again in Finn's jaw. We have to delay. He's been gathering information, writing up a report to outline the reasons why the Emperor should offer us his support. He meant to put it together in one docket as soon as he got back to Leon, but He trails off. I look around to see the expression on my father's face. It would silence me too. Your Highness. Somehow, my father's deliberate politeness is worse than Finn's barely suppressed anger. I was under the impression that the Emperor had already committed to our cause, that he had already agreed to send the black ships. For a long moment, Finn says nothing. I bite the inside of my lip. How could he lie to my father about the Emperor's support? It's not so simple, Finn says at last, and his tone is almost belligerent. Prince Leontius stands by us, but the Emperor, His Imperial Majesty, feels that the Caesarians do not always keep their promises. He wants assurances that we will lower the tariff on goods and encourage enrollment into the Imperial Army, not only from my father, but from you. He swallows. Any revolution in Caris must take place under imperial auspices. Imperial auspices? A shiver runs down my back. The last time the Palladician Empire involved itself in Caris and Erin, it conquered us and ravaged our lands with witch hunts. That might have been 2 centuries ago, and the Empire's borders have shrunk, but we all know what emperors are like. If they believe they should have something, they take it. My father seems to be thinking the same thing. Do you mean that the Empire means to annex us? Will we be vassals to Emperor Alexius? You know, the funny thing is, after I read this, I thought this is really similar to the Ichabod, isn't it? You know, we have a conflict between sort of groups in power, like, well, in the Ichabod, it was, I guess, between the kingdom and the people they were that were serving them, that were under them. And in this, it seems to be between sort of 2 neighboring kingdoms, maybe. Well, one's an empire, and one seems to be a kingdom that at least has enough freedom to not be annexed yet, but it seems like they're trying to get help in a civil war from an empire that holds a lot more cards, and they do seem to, you know, have to send people to the Imperial Army and yada yada. So yeah, you can tell this is definitely adult world building. There's a lot more complicated things in play here, you know, a lot more names and locations and relationships. The one I didn't get was the protagonist to the scene. We could tell she was the child. I think, well, I'm saying she because I'm pretty sure it's this character. So it seems to be the child of somebody who I guess is also subservient to the Your Highness, which also reminds me of the Ichabod, where somebody's getting mad at the person in power. So, I mean, even, an ally is getting mad at the person in power for, not delivering the news they want. So, yeah, I mean, this is intriguing. I mean, the confusing parts, again, are, the downside of the page 112 tag, that we don't know any information about all of these people and players other than what was on the page. But I do feel like I get a sense, in a way at least, of who the major players are, and a little bit into what they're, the other people that they're talking about. But yeah, in general, a little confusing, but also intriguing. And in fact, page 112 is the second page of the short story, Let Me Stay With You. So that's the way we roll with short stories. So anyway, welcome to the middle of nowhere, Freddie said in a jolly voice. I'm afraid we've lured you to the least fashionable area of France. But it's beautiful here, Ripley said. The landscape was severe and rocky, as arid as it appeared from the plain. Golden brown hills looked like the backs of sea lions and were speckled with twisted shrubs. Freddie and Claire's house was a 3-story rectangle, ochre stucco over stone. Casement windows opened out, revealing sheer curtains lifting in the breeze. A giant tree that Ripley couldn't identify cast an ellipse of shade on the lawn, and a long table beneath it was set for a meal. Claire came out of the house. Ripley, how wonderful, she said. She hugged him tightly. I made a cassoulet for lunch. I hope you like rabbit. Who doesn't like rabbits? Ripley said, and she laughed. She was a tiny woman, very thin and neat. Freddie and Ripley had known her slightly at college. She and Freddie met again later on. They had a teenage daughter, Elise. Though they lived in Manhattan, they spent August and Christmas time in France. Freddie took Ripley's suitcase and led him into the house. It was dim and cool and smelled faintly of burnt wood. The living room fireplace was large enough to roast a couple of goats. Ripley's room was at the top of a narrow flight of stone stairs. He looked at the photographs on the stairwell wall, snaps of Freddie and Claire when they were younger, pictures of Elise at every age, and an old black and white of a glamorous-looking couple, somebody's grandparents, he assumed. His bedroom was beneath the eaves, with an old-fashioned brass doubled bed and a bookcase full of paperbacks. He wondered if this was the bedroom he would have been given had he and Kate arrived together. It's the only bedroom on this floor, Freddie said. Plenty of privacy, and you've got your own bath. He opened a door to a small white tiled bathroom where there was a miniature sink and a toilet and shower. Believe me, it's a luxury. Bob and Elise have to share a bathroom. So yeah, I like this as well. Here we have what seems to be a fun vacation-y setup where a guy is going to visit old friends in France, of all places, where they have a country home, and there's so many great descriptions of the landscape and the inside of the house, so it really draws you in. And ironically, there's also, it seems like, a questionable lover named Kate, or that's really pushing it. I don't know if it's a lover or what anyone's feelings are, but it does feel like our narrator is wondering if his friends' opinions would have changed if he came with a Kate, kind of like the person in the last story. So anyway, yeah, I think this is intriguing stuff. I guess I want to know. It's, set up. It's page 2, I suppose. So the whole point is these are old friends, and how are they going to get along in France? Seems like a nice place to try to get along. But Benny couldn't yet give up on the British, and Sale soon went along with his plan to send a delegation of Karens to London in order to plead the Karen case. A goodwill mission, that's what we'll call it. A goodwill mission to London, during which you'll sit shoulder to shoulder with Altie's men. In London, Sale did what he could to play into British sympathies, even loosening up to the extent that he was able to share a few inebriated hours in entertaining talk about his favorite British authors and actresses with the likes of the Labour Party's Lord Pethick Lawrence at the luminous Claridge's Hotel. But Altie's buttoned-up ministers, who listened politely enough to his pained words of thanks for how the British had delivered them from the Japanese, and to his too emotional reminder of how the long loyal Karens needed an autonomous state, that he hoped might exist within the British Commonwealth, even if Burma itself gained independence from it, ultimately distanced themselves from their predecessors' protectorship of the Karens. "We're terribly grateful for what you have done," one particularly sympathetic minister said as he escorted Saleh to the door. "Without you, Aung San might never have come around. But I can't imagine how our officers thought they had the right to promise you statehood in exchange for your service. They overstepped. Yes, they overstepped. Very unfortunate." In the end, they were advised to throw their lot in with the Burmans. That betrayal seemed only to redouble the tenuous bond being forged between Benny and Saleh again, just as Louisa, coming upon the rifles in Benny's study, soon drew them together in their guilt. Together they smarted from the sting, in January 1947, of Aung San being invited to Buckingham Palace. Even Churchill is in disbelief, Benny noted, reading a dispatch from one of his London contacts, saying, "Listen, I certainly did not expect to see you Aung San, whose hands were dyed with British blood and loyal Burmese blood," meaning Karen and Kachin and Chin blood, marching up the steps of Buckingham Palace as the plenipotentiary of the Burmese government. Together they chafed at Aung San's victorious return to Burma and his hubristic assertion that he alone had determined the country's fate. And it goes on from there. There's a lot of, in this, asides in parentheses and run-on sentences and just lots of juxtaposed ideas in sentence by sentence, which made this really difficult to follow. So I feel like I almost have to eat my hat from the last page that I read, which was from a short story, and I'm like, well, maybe this just doesn't work for the style of short stories, but it can be the same in novels, where I guess the most kind reading of this would be that it's trying to be experimental on purpose, but I feel like it's just not working. There's just too much information laid into sentence by sentence at a time. It's just too overwhelming for me. I mean, I feel like generally speaking, I'm intrigued by the subject. I know that, you know, this is taking place in Burma. It's about different ethnic groups. It's about trying to gain independence, or, you know, a sense of self and statehood at the ends of colonialism, like the end of the British Empire in the 1940s, and, you know, how Britain is digging its heels in. I mean, this is interesting stuff. I just feel the execution isn't hugely well done on this page. I do know I'll be getting to this novel sooner or later. It is on my Goodreads TBR. It also, I'm pretty sure I heard about it through the Jewish Book Council site, because it is about a mixed Burmese Jewish family. The Jewish members came from Britain during the war, I believe, or sometime, maybe earlier. Not that you can tell that from the page, but yeah, I'm not too impressed with the page, but I know I'll be getting to this sooner or later. Bloop, 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 bloop. I think I've long ago run out of what I can do with sound effects to bring us back to the present, but here we are, back in March, and I'm going to go ahead and recap the 3 books you just heard me talk about. My December book was The Waking Land by Callie Bates. My January book was No Diving Allowed, Stories by Louise Marburg. And my February book was Miss Burma by Charmaine Craig. So I'm kind of cheating here right off the bat. I came into this video with some hidden pretenses. Namely, I already decided that I'm going to read this book and another book of short stories I got at the Gaithersburg Book Festival last year. I'll be reading them together in a month in the spring later on. And so that gives me, the excuse to no longer count it for this game. I nevertheless put it back in for March. So there we have it. But I will be getting to this book soon, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, for this month, that means we're down to 2 picks, them being the 2 novels, The Waking Land and Miss Burma. And I feel like you could tell from my clips that this book definitely intrigued me a bit more, and I was excited, especially after having it for so many years and not reading it yet, to finally get to it. And I'm going to go ahead and put this one back on my TBR shelf. I have it in my Goodreads TBR, which means sooner or later I should be getting to this book. Admittedly, there is a second, less game-oriented reason I wanted to read this book as well. You know, this is a fantasy book. And I had this experience last month while reading a physical copy of another fantasy book while beta reading chapters from my beta reading group. That I had a lot of fun doing that because my beta reading group, we are all writers writing science fiction and fantasy novels. And I just had a lot of fun reading a published fantasy novel that I was really enjoying while critiquing their work. And I wanted to go ahead and have that experience again this month. So I've actually known for a while that I'd be picking up this book. I've been excited to get to it, hoping it would, add to me keeping in this SFF mindset as I read their work. And another admission I have to make is that I have already started this book. This is very unusual for me when sitting down to do the page 112 tag videos, especially since for most months I don't know until that day what I'm going to be reading anyway. But in this case I started earlier than I expected to, because this month my beta reading group is meeting a little earlier in March. So I actually just went ahead and submitted my comments on their chapters to the members of my group, and I was reading this book, starting this book alongside all of that. And I'll go ahead and say I am very much enjoying this book so far. And I'll hopefully have good things to say in my first damn reading video of the month. So that about covers it for me now, and you can find the Goodreads links for all 3 of these books listed down below. Continuing into my normal outro for my page 112 tag videos, I want to shout out another booktuber who is engaging in a readathon or a TBR game, because I'd like to think that the page 112 tag is my way to be part of that community. This month I am going to shout out the Reading Wren and her game TBR Gate, which is based off of her favorite television show, or one of her favorite television shows, Stargate, a science fiction show. And her board, anyway, is really cool. Every place that she can land on is named for an episode of the TV show, and then she created a prompt based on that episode. And then when she doesn't complete the prompt for the month, when she lands on it, she has to put on what she calls a hive ship, which is, I assume, part of the show. And then when she re-lands on that space, she has to read 2 books and can only remove the hive space if she reads both of those books. I like the design of the hive ships myself, and also of the game board. It's really fun. I'm kind of stunned that I myself have never watched Stargate. It feels like something that would very much be up my alley. But at the current time, I'm kind of backed up on the TV shows I want to watch, and actually I'm hoping to have a decent TV watching month this month in order to write about these shows in my blogs. So this is a very heavy writing updated page 112 tag video, and in that vein, you'll see me back on this channel again in a couple of days to do my monthly author's answer video, another prompt monthly tradition I do here on BookTube, or technically AuthorTube, so stay tuned for that. But anywho, I am also linking the Reading Wren's TBR Gate playlist down below. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.